Happy Thursday, everyone. My name is Michelle Pollino. This is Pure Pollino. It's a foodie road we pave on Thursdays, and you get to walk down it with me, and I'm so excited that you do. Tuesdays, it's all about the stars in the sky, so Tuesdays we fly. Thursdays, we're on the road to food. Today, Food Taster Thursdays, it's a real treat because, first up, I'm going to start a new thing, which is my Foodie 5. Your Foodie 5 are the 5 biggest stories of the week. Only we dig a little bit deeper into that plate. Plus, I'm pretty excited because I have Philly peeps in the LA house. Entrepreneur, activist, and restaurateur Judy Wicks joins us. Now, if you've never heard of Judy Wicks, and I don't know that anybody outside of Philadelphia has, except if you're an activist or a restaurateur, Wicks grew up in a small town outside of Philadelphia, and she moved to Philly. And what started as a small muffin shop in a University of Penn neighborhood in West Philadelphia turned into a 200-seat restaurant called the White Dog Cafe. It's very famous worldwide because it's one of the first that started the trend of serving fresh local food while earning a reputation for Judy earned the reputation for her activism and her commitment to the community. She was definitely loud and proud in Philly. She had a dedication to the environment. She had a dedication to ethical business standards and practices, all while managing from the heart. Judy Wicks is a true pioneer in world economy and restaurateur, growing local, sticking to organic, being conscious of your environment. And I'm so excited we get to talk to her today. She has written a very smart, funny new memoir, and we're going to get a peek inside that. That's coming up in a few minutes. And you'll never guess who her ex-husband is. He is a very, very famous person in the world of retail. And I'm not going to give you any clues. Urban Outfitters. I'm not going to give you any clues, but we'll find out about their relationship and much more. It's going to be an exciting show. But first, big news today. We got the foodie news. Big news. Organizers say fast food restaurant workers in 100 cities. This is happening right now as we speak. I don't know. I drove past the McDonald's on the way here, and I saw a few picketers. People are walking off the job today as part of a continuing push to raise wages to, I think, above $15 an hour in the industry. Industry officials have criticized the campaign, claiming increased starting wages will hold back job growth and increase prices. Right now, I think it's $8 an hour. I think that's the minimum wage. But the reality is it takes $16 an hour just to eat, to live. And so I think President Obama is coming out and saying they need $10 an hour. And $7.15, is that right, Beth? Beth in the chat room saying $7.15. Thank you so much. It's true. Minimum wage is below $8 an hour, and in order to live in this society right now, we have to be making $16 an hour. So it's essential that these workers get recognized today. Whether or not you support it or not, we have to recognize that in order to live today in today's economy, it takes $16 an hour to live, and right now they're making under $8. By the way, has anybody heard of @TipsForJesus? This Instagram account that has been traveling across the country, leaving insane tips at your favorite restaurants. Well, the account @TipsForJesus, if you haven't heard of it, was created about 3 months ago. They've been spreading cheer via cash, which is the only cheer that I know other than alcohol, virtually everywhere, leaving tips as much as 10 grand. 10 grand. So far, they've dished out over $54,000 in tips since the account was created. They've hit 3 locations in LA this past week. So far, they were at the Hungry Cat, Jumbo's in Hollywood, and the Fig and Olive in West Hollywood. Jumbo's I've heard of, and I've never been there, I have to admit. I heard it's pretty crazy. It turns out that Valleywag, which is an online rag, claims the mystery tipper is reportedly Jack Selby. Looks like he was rolled out yesterday. He's a Bay Area hyper entrepreneur who made his vast fortune from PayPal. He's one of the PayPal mafia. have you heard of this? I've never heard of this, but I'm sure he's got plenty of cash. He's rolling it out. The source also claimed that the entire religious angle, because he created the account at Tips for Jesus, was actually a joke. Selby isn't giving out tips as some sort of monetary mission from God just because he can, but it certainly is a great gift. And I don't know if he's going to continue. It would be great if he did, wouldn't it? Could you imagine being that waitress? Like I'm like, wow. Could you imagine seeing that tip? I'm like, woo! School's paid off. I'm getting the push. Yeah. Yeah. So you know what some of my favorite things are? I'm going to tell you. Nutella. Nutella is one of my favorite things. Does anybody know what it is? It's a chocolate hazelnut spread, and it comes from Italy, and it's pretty much to die for. And there's not too many places that have Nutella bars, actual bars, but there's one place that does, and it's a place called Italy. It's in New York City, and it's owned by Mario Batali along with partners Joe and Lydia Bastianich. Everybody knows them, right? Well, the one in New York is pretty much awesome. It's a giant Italian food emporium. Italy is a giant food emporium. They have a Nutella bar inside it. That's how big it is. It's like if you've never been to Candyland, and if you're a food lover, that's what it's like. They sell pretty much every type of gourmet food you could ever need. You could easily spend hours perusing aisle after aisle of gourmet pastas, sauces, meats, cheeses, anything you can name is in the store. And now they are opening one. Drum roll. Do we have a drum roll? No drum roll? All right, I'm going to do a drum roll. In Los Angeles and Philadelphia. I am so insanely thrilled. Two of my favorite cities in the world will get my favorite gourmet shop. Italy will be coming to Philly first, and then Los Angeles. I'm pretty much over the moon about this. So also, Batali and Bastianich are getting close to opening up a new place in Las Vegas for the holidays. It's a burgers and beer joint in the Venetian. I'm pretty excited about that. A couple of events happening around town, meaning Los Angeles and Philadelphia, because that's where most of you peeps live that listen to the show. The Valley Forge Beer Festival is happening this Saturday. Beyond tastings of more than 100 different beers. And also here in Los Angeles, and we're going to talk to one of the winemakers a little bit later in the show, is the Pinot Days Festival. It is the largest gathering of Pinot Noir producers in the world. They're really growing. I think this is their third year. We'll find out a little bit more about it. Probably in about, right after Judy Wicks, in about a half hour, we're going to have Gray from Hitching Post Wines. They have an amazing Pinot Noir. He's going to be here a little bit later to talk about the festival. It's happening at the Skirball, I hope I'm saying it right, Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. If not, Gray has all the details. He'll be calling us at about quarter of the hour, and we'll find out all about the Pinot Days Festival. They have one in Chicago, they have one in San Francisco, and they have one, of course, in New York. And this is their Southern California weekend. It happens this Saturday, and there's wine tastings from 3 to 6. So stay tuned for a bunch more fun stuff for Pinot Noir. I love Pinot Noir. It's one of my favorite wines. Actually, if you guys remember, I don't know if you've listened to the show a few months back, but Joanne DeRay has a company called Small and Tall Wines, and she has a Pinot. I don't know if she's going to be there, but that's one of my favorite Pinot Noirs. By the way, earlier this week, the food world lost another chef. It's been a crazy time. They lost San Francisco chef Judy Rogers to a battle with cancer. Now, Rogers won a Beard Award as a chef of Zuni Cafe. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Zuni Cafe, but it's in San Francisco. She's also responsible for one of the most beloved cookbooks in the world, 2002's Zuni Cafe Cookbook. There's over 500 pages in this cookbook of meticulously written, tested, and edited recipes. Some recipes span pages, including the restaurant's famous roast chicken, which I had at that restaurant. It's a roast chicken for two. The recipe is nearly 5 pages long. The Zuni Cafe Cookbook is what other chefs only dreamed their cookbooks could become. It's a pretty fitting legacy for Rogers, who died this week at the age of 57. But I have to say, the cookbook contains one of the greatest quotes ever for foodies, and one to listen to and cook by. Rogers said, "Cookbooks will give you ideas, but the market will give you dinner." I love that idea. That should be our quote for the day. Cookbooks give you ideas, but the market gives you dinner. Study your market at least as avidly as you study your library. Rogers' true legacy, though, may not be her roast chicken, but rather the technique that she leaves behind. She was a huge advocate of dry brining meat, salting it immediately when she comes home from the market, and that's everything. Actually, Los Angeles critic Jonathan Gold back in 2003 wrote this paragraph, and paraphrasing it, because Jonathan Gold writes intensely. If you've ever read any of his reviews, what he said back in 2003 is the most important lesson of the book, and probably at this point as much the sign of a Rogers cultist as a bowl full of soaking zucchini is the mark of a Marcella Hazan addict, is Rogers' imperative to rub salt into the surface of fish, meat, or poultry the second you get them home. And that is one of her legacies. So we've lost a few great ones this year: Charlie Trotter, Marcella Hazan, and now Rogers. Luckily for us, though, not a chef, but an amazing activist, amazing restaurateur, we have with us coming up next Judy Wicks. So to me, growing up in Philadelphia, the name Judy Wicks was part of an everyday restaurant speak verbiage. When I first heard of the White Dog Cafe, I was a very young buckette. Is that a word, buckette? If it's not, I just made it up. Just saying. Wanting to scour the city's landscape in search of great places to dine, and everybody said, go to the White Dog Cafe. So right now we have, coming up next, right after this break, we're going to talk to the owner of the White Dog Cafe, Judy Wicks. Not only was she one of the city's greatest restaurateurs, but she was an extreme activist. She was, in my eyes, kind of what to the restaurant world, what Alice Walters was to the chef world. So we're going to find out all about her life in her memoir. That's coming up next. So stay with us right here on Pure Pollino. All right, welcome back. This is Pure Pollino. My name is Michelle Pollino. It's Culinary Culture on Thursdays, and we're stargazing on Tuesdays. Today, though, I feel pretty lucky because growing up in Philadelphia, the name Judy Wicks was part of my everyday. When I first met Judy at events across the city of Philadelphia, these events were mainly events centering on our economy or our environment. You can pick it up. Issues, saving the environment, or the White Dog was also at center stage like a community parlor for political discussions. This is what I thought was so intriguing. It was almost like we had our own Algonquin circle, and it all centered around the White Dog Cafe to deal with issues about war and peace and international cooperation and understanding. What she created, maybe a little more than a quarter century ago, was exactly what the world is starting to do now, starting to understand that we need a balance between the feminine and masculine in business. And this, to me, it just touched me when I read it. Good Morning Beautiful Business is her book. It explores the way entrepreneurs as well as consumers can follow both their heart and mind, cultivating lasting relationships with each other and the planet, which to me, I'm getting a little choked up because it means that much to me. We can build a more compassionate economy, and that will bring us greater security and greater joy. And I believe she is on the phone with us right now. Welcome to the show, Judy Wicks.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, Judy, I am so excited, and LA welcomes you.
Hello.
So I am so thrilled for your memoir. To me, I know you won't remember me because you've gone through so many people, but you were truly the pioneer in that localization movement. I think as much as Alice Waters was to chefs, you were to restaurateurs. And especially a local economy pioneer. The book is a memoir, and it starts out basically with your youth, correct?
That's right. It starts out when I'm about 9 years old.
And you grew up as a tomboy in a Pennsylvania town, right?
Yep, Ingvar, a town in western Pennsylvania, where I spent a lot of my time building forts up in the woods.
So you got your love of nature there, and your love and your connection, really, I think, right?
Yeah, and just sort of developing a sense of place,
right?
Putting my stake in the ground and building out from there. And I think it was really the beginning of my creating restaurants to be able to create a space,
right?
Even though I wasn't serving food, in a sense, I was beginning to create space to invite people in, and even though I didn't like to sew or cook, really, being a tomboy, I actually did sew some curtains for the windows of my cabin, and planted flowers outside, to make it attractive. So looking back on it, of course, I had no way of knowing then, but looking back on it, I think it was in preparation for one day starting a restaurant.
Your life is a series of events, and you just took these amazing leaps of faith at every turn. And I really love your story, and I think it can connect to so many people as we all search for careers and our paths in life. First of all, let's talk about how you got to Philadelphia.
To Philadelphia. Well, I came to Philadelphia in 1970 with my first husband, and our purpose was to start a business, a store that we called the Free People Store. Mm-hmm. And that's what Philadelphia. I went for work and realized we were both mavericks and really wouldn't make good employees if I'd start our own business. And when I was a little kid, I used to make things and put them in my wagon and take my wagon down to the highway and sell things from my wagon. So I just said to my husband, it's really easy to have a retail store. You buy something at one price and sell it for a higher price. That's all there is to it. So we started out with $3,000, which was our $1,500 each stipend from our tenure as VISTA volunteers in Alaska, which is another chapter in the book of what I learned from the Eskimos. But we started with so little money, $3,000. We couldn't afford to rent an apartment and a store, so we actually slept in the back of the store. And then that store grew up to become Urban Outfitters, a national, international, really chain.
Yeah.
And my first husband is still the CEO of that company, but I left very early on after the first 2 years and got into the restaurant business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually remember Free People. I remember that store. I'm not saying how old I am. But I remember that store. And I thought it was, of course, when you're a young kid, you're like, that's the coolest store ever. And, of course, Urban Outfitters still kind of has that cool cachet going. So, still has that kind of hip thing going. And that's fantastic. You guys split, and eventually the way you got into the restaurant business was pretty amazing. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, I was. I decided I was leaving my husband and packed up my things. So I was leaving really my home, my business, my marriage all at once, and got a half a block away from the store and went through a red light. And luckily, no one was hurt, but my car was all smashed up, and I didn't drive it. And there was a fellow on the sidewalk, and he said, well, could I help you home? And I said, no, I can't go home. I've just left my husband, and I have to keep going. And now I have to find a job quickly because I've just wrecked my car. And he said that he worked in a restaurant, and he knew there was an opening for a waitress. And so I said, I'll take it, as though I was talking to the owner of the restaurant or whatever. And so that's how I got into the restaurant business, quite by accident.
Wow. I mean, talk about serendipity. Talk about things happening in such a way. Judy, did you ever get your chart done? I mean, you sound like you're probably a Sag. I'm guessing because they jump on every opportunity possible.
Well, I'm actually a Taurus.
Taurus, wow. Okay, restaurant business. Yeah, that makes sense.
Very earthy.
Very earthy. Very earthy. So you literally kind of were like so distraught, and in that space, you probably were just like, I surrender, and all of a sudden this accident occurs, and next thing you know, you're going and working at a restaurant.
Right, exactly.
That's so crazy.
And then I ended up staying at that restaurant for 12 years, became the manager, became a partner in the business, that's another chapter in the book.
Right, right.
And then I had a falling out with my partner there, and left and started the White on the first floor of my house, which is just down the street. And in 1983, started just as a coffee and muffin takeout shop. Couldn't afford the whole works at that point, and then just gradually built it up into a $5 million business, and started a retail store next door called the Black Cat, where we sold locally made and fair trade gifts. So it was a great run. We were a pioneer in the local food movement, started by local farmers back in 85, 86, something like that.
Right, and this is what I find really interesting, because now it's all the rage, so to speak. Let's just make sure. Let's hope that it stays the rage, because I think what you did and what you accomplished, and I want to focus in on that a little bit. I mean, so you started the restaurant. Did you have any kind of fully formed plan at all? Any kind of business plan?
Oh yeah. I mean, I needed to do a business plan to get money to the bank, and also just to be able to chart my own path. Trying to figure out what my income would be and what my expenses would be, that kind of thing. You figure out how many seats I would have and what the average check was, and some sort of a guess at what my sales would be. And of course, I had run a restaurant just up the street for. I was a manager for 10 years,
right.
So I knew very well, the market. I knew the business. I could use that as a template. I didn't expect to start up at the same volume. Once I got out of the coffee and muffin takeout shop and grew to be larger, that's when when I was very small, I didn't have a business plan. I just did whatever it was. I didn't even know from day to day exactly what was going to happen.
Wow.
Because I didn't know how much money. And then I had a lot of serendipitous things happen. An elderly lady who I had befriended passed away and left me $30,000 that I needed sort of in the nick of time, kind of a.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
It's just all different kinds of good fortune. So I just grew very organically and just from day to day figure out what was next.
Wow.
But then at one point, when I mortgaged the house to get more money to put in a professional kitchen and everything, I needed to have a plan of how I was going to pay that mortgage, an increased mortgage, and needed to figure all that out. And then, of course, that's having a budget. It creates a guidepost to see how one's doing. So that's a very necessary part of business. But in the very beginning, I didn't know what to expect. So I couldn't make any predictions. And I started, as I said again, in the beginning I had no money, so I would just take furniture out of my house and put it downstairs. When I made the steps from coffee and muffins to beginning to serve like soup and sandwiches, and I needed some places to sit, couldn't afford to buy restaurant furniture, so I just brought things down from my house, my kitchen table and chairs and so on.
That's wild.
So it's, it was just use what you have.
Yeah.
Just as we did when we started the Free People store.
One of our viewers right now in the chat room said, how do you think you attracted that? You think positive trust and faith? Do you think you were on the right track and that kept your positivity going? Do you know what I mean? Those serendipitous moments that you had throughout the book where it's
I do believe that when we put our hopes and dreams, into something with all our heart and work towards something that, it's not just luck. There is, I do believe that there's a kind of a alignment of energy, what you will, but a greater force than oneself.
I love that.
That helps out,
Yeah, and I also think that you also started to develop that vision right around then. I mean, you sought out Eliza Green to be the head chef for White Dog, right?
Right. Yep.
And
I was looking. I knew I wanted to. I had been in a French restaurant for a number of years, and so I knew I wanted to have American food because I was tired of French food and all the heavy sauces and imported ingredients and so on, and I wanted to have food like my mother cooked back in my small town of Ingomar, My parents had a big family garden where my mother grew lots of vegetables and canned them for the winter and so on. So I kind of grew up in that environment, and we had farm country right around us. So what we didn't grow ourselves, we would buy from the farmers markets and so on. So it was kind of what I was longing for. That actually became fashionable.
Right.
But, at the time, I had never heard of Alice Waters. I had no idea that she was developing kind of the new American cuisine based on fresh, local, organic vegetables. I had not heard of that. It's just what I wanted because that's how I was raised.
Right.
So little did I know that I was going to catch a wave when I made that decision.
Again, the alignment of the stars.
Yeah, there was some sort of alignment there. And I also think it was just a time for this. I mean, time to have kind of an American cuisine and to go back to our roots of farming and whatnot. And then the baby boomers, Alice and I are both baby boomers, and other people in this movement are probably all craving the same thing, together, which was to have the kind of food that our moms made. I think the time was right, put it that way.
Yeah.
For, just to have an American cuisine. It was always that all the best restaurants were Italian and French. No one ever thought of an American restaurant as being something noteworthy food-wise. That was just the steak and potato places or the hamburger places or whatever. I think it was time, for an American cuisine to emerge.
You were your restaurants was one of the first restaurants that made me, as a person going to restaurants, really aware of how local farmers treated their animals. And this is what made me understand the business and what you were doing. And it really influenced me, I have to say, Judy. It really, really did, because I was a vegetarian as a kid. And I didn't, because I knew that in my heart, it's almost like I knew that these animals weren't being treated well. But when I read about, what you did, after reading harrowing accounts of how pigs were treated on industrial farms, you immediately pulled all the items from your menu that contained any pig products, and then had your chef, I think it was Klaus, was his
Kevin Klaus.
Who was the sous chef, and then he became the chef, to start dealing with ethically raised meat. I was amazed at that thought. I was like, wow. I mean, you were the first bell that went off in my head. I'm like, this is something that's right. This is what needs to be right in the world.
Right. Well, I think it comes, and this is something I talk about in my book, that we in the U.S. consumer culture have been hardened. Our hearts have been hardened to a large extent about where our products come from. We don't think about the sweatshops that make our clothes. We don't think about the animal factories and the caged hens in the battery cages and all the slaves that pick cocoa beans. I mean, there's a lot of cruelty and suffering that lies below the radar, of our economy, and we're kind of taught to just buy, don't think, don't think, buy, shop. But when you stop to think about it and actually allow yourself to feel, then you don't want to do this, But I think people that work for coats, they don't want to think about, the way that those animals were raised. They just want to think about their lovely fur coat. And I think it's the same with food. People don't want to hear it to a large extent. So it's really about opening your heart and to really feel. And as an animal lover, it really, when I heard about the pigs, and I know that pigs are very intelligent animals and very sensitive. They're mammals, like our dogs. And we know that dogs have feelings. We can see the expressions on their faces.
Yeah. I have two Jack Russells.
Yeah. I mean, they have feelings. All mammals have feelings. And this has been something scientifically debated, but the theories now are that, yes, mammals do have feelings, that mammals have the capacity for joy and sorrow and so on, whether you're a pig or a dog or a human being. We're all mammals together. So, I've always felt that. I've had dogs ever since I was little, and so when I heard about the pigs, I just could not believe this. And I couldn't be a part of it.
Yeah.
I couldn't be a part of this suffering.
Right.
And so I think that's what we all have to do, is open our hearts. And this is, you mentioned earlier the idea of balancing the feminine and the masculine, and I feel like this is what it's about. It's about the balance of the heart and the head. And we've just been gone too far in the direction of masculine energy, and by that I don't mean men and women, but rather the masculine and the feminine that's in each of us as individuals, men and women both. I had a farmer that described it quite well. He said that good farming is the balance of the masculine and the feminine, which he equates to efficiency and nurturing. And you have to have both. And I certainly been in situations where there's too much feminine energy too.
Yeah, true, so true.
It could be a good way to go out of business, but it's a balance, and we're out of kilter. And I think the factory farming of animals is one of the extreme examples of too much efficiency. How much can we wring out of those chickens and pigs? How little space can we give them? How little food can we give them? How little light and air can we give them to make the most profit? And that's just horrible.
It is. It is extremely horrible. And I think that, you being a pioneer in this movement and so many people becoming more aware, mindfulness is huge now. People are becoming more aware and of what they eat, where it comes from, everything they're putting on their body, in their body. And this movement is a beautiful thing. And you're right about balancing the male and female energy. We have a question in the chat room from Beth. She says, is this something Judy sees doing forever, or does she have different plans for retirement? Actually, I believe you sold the White Dog Cafe, right, Judy?
I did. I sold it in 2009, so that'll be 5 years this January. And I sold it in a unique way. It just happened that during the time I was contemplating selling, the trademark White Dog Cafe came up for renewal, as it does every 10 years. And so when I renewed it, I took it out of the ownership of the corporation and put it into my personal ownership. So when I sold the corporation, I did not sell the name. And now I licensed the name to the new owners with a social contract that requires them to use only humanely raised meat and only sustainably caught fish and fair trade chocolate and tea and coffee and vanilla and cinnamon, etc. So, I was able to attach the values to the name. So that's worked out pretty well. That's
pretty incredible. That's very smart. That is insanely smart, and that is great because that name has a lot of pull in Philadelphia. The White Dog Cafe is now there's two places, correct? There's one in Wayne as well as in downtown Philly, right?
That's right. And the one in Wayne, also in using the name, must abide by the social contract as well.
Nice. The social contract. I love that. Now, you also have been a pioneer as far as creating the Sustainable Business Network in Philadelphia, correct?
That's right. After I made the decision to change all of our animal products to small family farms where the animals are treated with kindness and respect.
So great.
I looked at my menu and thought, well, we've finally done it. We have a cruelty-free menu, unless you're, vegetarian, but for omnivores, it was a cruelty-free menu, and we were the only restaurant in town that could boast of that. And so at first I thought, well, gee, this is going to be our market niche. This is our competitive advantage. But then I realized that if I really did care about those pigs and the small farmers being driven out of business and the environment being polluted by these factory farms with all that manure in one place, and the health of the consumers, that I would, rather than keeping this as my competitive advantage, that I would share my sources with my competitors, with the other restaurants in town. So that was a huge move for me, moving really from competition to cooperation. And understanding that there's no such thing as one sustainable restaurant. We can only be part of a sustainable system, and that we have to cooperate in order to build that system. So I started a nonprofit, White Dog Community Enterprises, and began putting 20% of my profits into my nonprofit. And then from there, we started two projects. The first was Fair Food, which was a nonprofit project. It's now its own independent nonprofit, but it was part of White Dog for its first, 6 years or more. It's now 12 or 13 years old. But anyway, the first job of that organization, Pure Food, was to go around to the other restaurants in town and give them a list of all of our purveyors, all of the farmers with their phone numbers and what they all carried. And we sort of made a wholesale guide to buying from farmers and distributed that to the other restaurants in town and really helped them to learn how to buy from farmers, and had farmer chef events and tours for the farm chefs to go out to the farms and all that kind of stuff. And then the second nonprofit was the Sustainable Business Network that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
That was my way of being able to share other business practices with other businesses, not just the food and farming, but all different types of businesses. And that's a healthy nonprofit on its own as well now. It was over 400 members of locally owned independent businesses that are using the triple bottom line to measure success rather than the single bottom line of profit. It's, people, planet, and profit. So how do our business decisions affect people and planet as well as our profit?
I want to read this quote, and we'll say who it's by. I'm sure you'll know. Judy Wicks is one of the most amazing women I have ever met. She ran the legendary White Dog Cafe with passion, heart, common sense, and financial success. And she continues to blaze new paths on the road to a truly sustainable, people-centered economy. This is a must-read book. This is Ben Cohen, co-founder of Ben & Jerry's. And I know that you have quite a history with him.
That's true. We're very close friends, and it was really Ben, I say in the book, that he discovered me. I was a small business person.
In Philly, we
really
always
didn't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but in Philly, we always thought you guys were dating. That was the rumor on the street.
Well, we were dating at one point.
Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. But yes, yeah.
And with him living in Vermont and my living in Philadelphia, it wasn't really very practical to have a romance. So that just developed into a long-term, deep friendship. We've been friends for over 20 years now. So Ben was the one that invited me to kind of join a national organization of progressive business people called Social Venture Network. And I really was operating in the dark before that. I was doing what following my heart, basically, in terms of my business practices. But I wasn't aware that there were other business people in the world who were practicing the triple bottom line. I didn't call it the triple bottom line. I never heard of living wage or fair trade, or I didn't have any terminology for anything. So Ben was speaking in Philadelphia and happened to come with some friends to the White Dog, and we met and really hit it off, and he invited me to join Social Venture Network, and that really changed my life because I started operating on another, larger plane, and learning from other businesses as well as teaching. And so it's a great exchange to be around like-minded business people.
And did you encounter any resistance at all? I mean, because you started doing something very different. Very different.
Not really. I mean, for the most part, my work was very much appreciated. I once in a while would get a bizarre email from somebody, saying, I was a communist or something.
Yeah. No, I would imagine that. No, that's what I would imagine. Yes.
But but most, to tell you the truth, I mean, I think that even though my values are very progressive in terms of economic and social justice and environmental, protecting our environment and many other things, I had the respect of more conservative people because of my business success.
Yeah.
So it tends to be a more unusual combination to be a business person and politically progressive person. But because I was a successful business person, I wasn't I was respected by people who didn't agree with my politics. And I tried to keep my politics out of sight. When someone wanted to come in to eat, drink, and be merry, forget about their problems, they could come to White Dog and do that, and not be aware, really, if you're just walking off the street and have a seat, that we, on certain slow nights, Monday nights, would have table talks with progressive speakers, or take groups of customers, to foreign countries, or to an affordable housing tour, or a tour of the prison, or Child Watch tour, or whatever. All these things were going on, but they weren't visible to the average diner. So I was always very, very careful not to feel as though I was shoving my values down anyone's throat, so that they could have a good time.
We're going at 45 to break. Sorry. We are actually running out of time, and I just got the 2-minute warning. We're going into a break. But, Judy, I want to say, first of all, how can people get a hold of you, and how can people get a hold of your book?
Well, my website is judywicks.com, and my book can be ordered from my website. And also, most local independent bookstores carry it. You can order it from a local bookstore.
Right.
Kindle is available at Amazon.com. Or regular books. I don't encourage Amazon, but some people love Amazon, so they can do that. So those are the best ways. JudyWicks.com, and I have my list of speaking events on there.
Right.
And I do accept invitations to speak in various places. I'd love to come to LA.
I would love you to.
Yet.
Yes, I would love you to. And you're also part of BALLE, right?
Valley.
Valley.
It's a national organization. And that website is bealocalist.org. We're having our national conference. It'll be our 14th national conference on local economies in Oakland in June. Anyone interested in attending that could look at bealocalist.org and find out more about the upcoming conference.
Okay. Judy Wicks, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Good Morning, Beautiful Business is the memoir of Judy's life. Get it for your favorite person who understands that being compassionate and mindful in business is really where we all need to go. Thank you so much for being a pioneer and influencing so many people, and of course for your restaurant and all the great meals that I had there.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It's great to reconnect, and thanks for inviting me to be on your show.
And I look forward to you in LA. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, Judy.
Okay.
Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Keep warm in Philly. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Pinot Days, the festival coming to Los Angeles. That's coming up next with Gray from Huntley Wines. What is it? Yeah. Hitching Post Wines. That's it. Thank you very much. Right next on Pure Pollino. The world is changing, and so is our political system. One person that is taking the lead and is ensuring that this change is using the principles of nonviolence to birth a new American politics is author, spiritual leader, and speaker Marianne Williamson. She'll be here to talk about why she's running for Congress and what she sees as the new American political landscape. I have no doubt it will be compelling talk. Plus, we'll take your questions in the chat room and on the phone lines. Be sure to join us for a very special Pure Pollino. Marianne Williamson, Tuesday, December 10th at 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively live on ubnradio.com.
Change this feeling under my feet. Change the sheets and change me.
We are experts at video production. We have crews in over 100 cities and the finest editors in the world. It's fun to create your videos, and that's what we love doing. We're good at that. But the most important thing is, how do you use those videos? How do you leverage your video investment? We provide all the platforms to do that. Website design, social media, SEO, PR, and television. And all of those components do a dance that work in tandem with each other for a comprehensive marketing campaign that really helps grow your business.
Welcome back to Pure Pollino. My name is Michelle Pollino. This is Food Taster Thursdays, or Culinary Culture Thursdays, whatever you like. And with me on the phone right now is Gray from Hitching Post Wines. Gray, you there?
I certainly am. Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this weekend's 5th annual Pinot Days Southern California Grand Festival. There's a big public tasting, and I know that you guys are a huge part of it. So first, Gray, tell me a little bit about Hitching Post wines and their Pinot Noir specifically.
Well, our Pinot Noir is something that Frank Ostini and I started making in 1981.
Nice.
And it's something that, well, quite frankly, I became smitten with immediately when my palate got a chance to be inspired by this wonderful fruit that we made. And Frank and I have just been so focused on trying to make Pinot Noir better and better every year.
Yeah.
It's been a real treat.
It is a very nice, luscious Pinot, and I'm pretty excited because I'm going to be there as well. Is this the first year you've been involved in this festival?
No, I've been there many years. This is the 5th annual, so I've been there 5 years in Southern California, and then San Francisco, and then Chicago, and we've been around. We've been taking the love of Pinot Noir far and wide on this country. We're even talking about maybe going to Europe with it. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Tell me what is it that makes Pinot Noir one of your favorites, and specifically your Hitching Post Pinot.
Well, what do I like about Pinot Noir? Well, to be honest with you, Pinot Noir for me takes me places that I didn't know that I could possibly go to. Just a second, my grandson wants my attention. I'm on the phone. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
He wants a glass of Pinot.
He wants more Pinot in his sippy cup. Oh, golly. So Pinot Noir for me is an experience, and each time I try a new one, it has something else to share with me.
Yeah, I find that. Mm-hmm.
You know, and the reason that Frank and I enjoy making it is because it comes from this wonderful Santa Barbara County where we're so fortunate to live and make wine from. There's such a tremendous amount of diversity between the Santa Maria Valley and Santa Rita Hills and San Ynez area. It's just been very special.
Well, I'm excited to, and I will meet you because I will be there at the 5th annual Pinot Day Southern California Grand Festival. It's Saturday, December 7th from 3 to 6 at the Skirball. Is that how you say it? I believe it is. Cultural Center in Los Angeles. It's at 2701 North Sepulveda Boulevard. You can check them out online at pinotdays.com. Gray, thanks so much for stopping by to talk to us.
Listen, come one, come all, get your Pinot on.
All right, we're going to leave on that note, Gray. I don't think you can get any better than that. Have a great day, Gray.
Okay.
All right,
Bye,
and bye-bye. All right, and check out, don't forget Pure Pollino Tuesdays and Thursdays right here. And coming up next, Maria Mancini dishing the details. You can follow me at Pure Pollino on Twitter, pure_Pollino at Instagram and Facebook.com/Pure Pollino. Have a great weekend. I will see you at Pinot Days.